Hey everyone, welcome back. Glad to see you. Happy New Year, because it's been a while. Hope you had a wonderful holiday and rang in the new year right. And welcome to the new season of Movies That Move We. So today we are discussing The Woman King, starring Viola Davis. And if you haven't seen it yet, there's some minor spoilers ahead. But I think most of you have seen it by now. I hope you've seen it by now. It's actually a fantastic movie, very well done. The film was released in September 2022 and grossed overall 6.8 million, which ain't shabby at all. Right now it's award seasons and you're seeing these nominations for the film, and it's all very well deserved. Where do we begin? It's kind of hard to talk about this movie without immediately delving into what people had the biggest problem with. I think people forgot that this was inspired by real events. So things that were factual. The Dahomey warriors, they were real. The kingdom of Dahomey, which is modern day Benin, really did exist. The King Jezo, real person. Viola Davis's character Naniska and I believe Naui were also real characters. Whether they were actually Dahomey, I'm saying real characters, they were real people. Whether she was a general or what their roles were, as far as being female warriors, it's kind of up in the air. I personally don't know those specifics, but they were actual people. The story itself about Naniska and Naui, the mother-daughter storyline, no, it's not real. That's not those people's story. A couple of the big complaints is, wait a minute, how are we going to talk about the Agoji warriors without talking about their role in the slave trade? Because that is a big part of the story. I think sometimes we have to take the story for what it is. Again, inspired by actual events. It touched on the fact that people were captured, black people were captured and sold into the slave trade by these kingdoms. And a lot of times people put it in the context of, oh, but y'all are black people, aren't you all supposed to love each other? Why would you sell your own into slavery? It's called war, sweetie. It's called war. Okay, there's a war happening right now between Russia and Ukraine, and it's about power. They're not worried about, oh my gosh, we're fighting other white people. This is morally wrong. We should not be doing this. No. Ego, lust for power, lust for wealth, those are all things that drive countries to fight each other, kill civilians, take civilians as prisoners. And the same thing happened in the 1820s when this story took place. These people were being sold as POWs. These kingdoms that gathered these people had no need for them, or I'm not going to say had no need, because they did absorb them in some ways into their kingdom and into their war. But if you want to hurt the other side, sell their people to another another entity where they won't be able to get their people back. That puts a dent in their kingdom. It makes them easier to fight you. Sometimes we have to just look at the politics of it instead of saying, oh, you all should just hold hands and sing kumbaya. That's not the reality of war. And so the film did show a little bit of that, explained a tad bit of that, but it didn't delve into it because the movie was about these warriors, how hard these women fought, what they endured to become Agoji warriors. And it was about the mother-daughter story between, like I said, Naniska and Naui. Other things that they got right in the film, as I just alluded to, was how these women came to be warriors. And we see when Naui is introduced that she is about to be married off to a really old man. And the family is like, this is a good match for you. He's wealthy. You go, you take care of him, you be obedient, and you'll have a good life. This is the husband you deserve. And she was like, no, I'm not attracted to that. And that got her brought to the king's gate. That's what happened with disobedient women. Now, I'll make this point. As much as that sounds like women held a subservient role in the culture, yes, in one way, yes. But then you have this other piece where women make up most of the military. The men were getting killed in battle, and they had to rely on women to protect the kingdom. And so you see that kind of, I want to call it balance of power. But you see how women don't have just one role. Their role wasn't just to be wife. Their role wasn't just to be mother. You know, they could take care of home, cook dinner, keep the house clean, and then issue some hands on the kingdom's behalf if the need called. And the need called. Things that they also got right about the Agoji warriors, their training. Now, if you watch the film, it gives you some examples of what these young women endured, how young they were, where they came from, but it showed all of the things that they had to do to prove that they deserved to be in that spot. They were worthy of being part of this army. And probably the harshest thing that would have turned Nikkei away. When they were crawling through the thorns, yeah, I wouldn't have. If I made it that far out, that would have been it. They would have put me out because, no. But all of those things collectively really brought to life, overall, what that time period was like. The options at that point for trade were palm oil, which was, if the only world that they had to deal with were the surrounding African nations, palm oil was like gold. Everybody needed palm oil. But once you had this element come in that said, hey, we need humans, and we'll pay you more for the humans than you're making for palm oil, the balance shifted. And that's how some of us ended up where we are today because of wars like this. Interesting note about the movie, bringing this movie to life. 2017, just after the Black Panther came out, Viola Davis and Lupita Nyong'o talked about doing this movie. And at a certain point, Lupita Nyong'o backed out. She was like, yeah, this role isn't for me. She was supposed to play the role of Nowie. Honestly, I can't see her in the role. And there's no bad blood between anybody about her not continuing with the role. But as much as I know she could play the role and do it justice, I like Tosu Mbedu in this role. She was fantastic. Viola Davis in interviews has talked about how hard it was to get buy-in from major companies to take this film on. And once again, this is the long-standing issue with major companies asking the ridiculous question: will people come out and watch a film with a mostly Black cast? Do people want to see that? Well, 41% of non-Black moviegoers went to see this, and it was rated 94% by Rotten Tomatoes. I think people in 2021, 22, and 23, they're okay with seeing Black people on screen now. So my question is, when is that question going to stop being asked? Especially after the success of films like Black Panther. The thing that I noticed is that the production of this was largely women. Writing, production, development. This was pushed forward by women, which I think was one of the other challenges to getting the movie made, because yes, in 2021, 2022, people still look at women and Black women as, can you really do this? But Viola Davis and her husband's production company pushed. They found people who believed in the project. Viola Davis brought Kathy Schulman in, who was one of the folks who developed the film, and apparently she was a huge help in getting this in front of the right set of eyes. And ultimately, Sony said, we'll take a chance on it. And the film did well. Like I said at the start, grossed $6.8 million overall. And again, we see all the awards and nominations that it's getting right now in this awards season. Some other names associated with the project: this was directed by Gina Prince Blythewood. The screenplay and story were written by Maria Bello and Dana Stevens. So just a lot of folks associated with this that brought it to fruition. And if you haven't seen it, go find it somewhere. Right now you can see it on all streaming networks: Vudu, iTunes, Prime, Vudu, Prime, iTunes, YouTube. Anywhere where streaming is happening, you can go ahead and rent this film. I even noticed that locally, it's still in a few theaters. So if you don't feel like doing the whole rental thing and you're like, I want to go out to the movies and see this, check your local listings. It may still be showing in some parts of the country. Before I go, one of the things that took me a little bit by surprise, but I liked it. At the end, as the credits rolled, they had a shot of one of the characters, Amenza, pouring tribute, pouring out libation to the fallen soldiers. And she named some of the characters in the film, and the last warrior that she named was Brianna. And I had to pause. I literally paused the film and said, wait a minute. Brianna is a very not African sounding name. And I don't recall that. Could they be talking about? And yes, they were talking about Breonna Taylor, because she was murdered around the time that the film was in production. So they did include her in that tribute as well. So overall, I give this 5 stars, 5 being our best. When rating these movies, I give it 5 stars, you know, as a point of learning. Even though it's not completely accurate, I think it's a great starting point to learning about a history that isn't often addressed in schools. I didn't find out who these ladies were until I was well into adulthood. So go ahead, check the movie out, learn about the Dahomey warriors and the Dahomey kingdom. They are a big part of world history, Black history. And let us know in the comments below what you thought of the film. Don't forget to follow, subscribe to our page, hit the bell so that whenever we post, you know about it. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Movies That Move We. And every week, get alerted when we come on. Also, don't forget to follow moderators. I'm Nikay. Follow me on Nikay Writes, nikaywrites.wordpress.com. Nicole's not with us today, but you can find her, NicoleDeCandice.com. Google her, child. She's doing stuff. She's got stuff happening. And don't forget to follow our founder, Don Miskel. That's Miskel. The anniversary of his passing is coming up. Best way to pay tribute to him is to purchase one of his books. So run on over to Amazon, type in his name, Donmiskel, and grab a copy of one of his works. They are fantastic. So that is all I have for you today. We'll see you next week with another great review. Until then, bye-bye.